Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to the Drunkduck Quackcast. I'm Odysseus, with me is Baines and Tance. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello. And this is the Quackcast number 700, I believe. So this is an incredible feat. 700 of these. Oh my god. And it's part 2 of the Mythcast. So that's what we're going to be talking about after the theme song. Hello everybody. This is Ozone Ocean, of course. With me is Todd, Serene and Baines, and we're up to number 700, and it's a Mythcast part 2. But before we get into that, hooray, huzzah. Apparently what they used to say before they said huzzah, like the real way they pronounced that was huzzah.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
Yeah, that's apparently the way you're meant to pronounce it, huzzah, like hip hip hooray. Who knows?
Okay.
There we are. Huzzah sounds better. A big 700. That's a big number, and we're finishing our whole myth thing. But before we get into that, we have to bring up the features comic. So Quackcast is going to tell us about a comic called Amel, A Grey Warden is Born. Quai, tell us about that.
Hello, this is Quackcast, and the feature I've selected for this week is Amel, A Grey Warden is Born by Maleficentra, and it is rated E for everyone. Salona Amel wakes up recovering from an attack that left her gauze-wrapped and wounded, weeks after a battle won by Darkspawn. Greeted by a familiar face, Morgan briefs Salona that she was rescued by Mother at the 11th hour, and that Mother would be pleased with her healing progress. Salona's gradual return is noticed by her friend, an armor-clad paladin who knew her before the accident. A circle mage by trade, Salona has the ability to become enveloped in magical energy, which is a strength and a vulnerability at the same time. The healing ability is the equivalent of applying a bandage to a paper cut. The art spans a drawing window that originally started in 2018, with the initial character designs at the start of the story, and quickly updates to the latest art style by the end of Chapter 1. Striking selections of magentas, violets, and blue color combinations that resemble illuminated cotton candy. Find out whether Salona manages to acquire new clothes and read Amel, A Grey Warden is Born by Maleficentra, rated E.
Now that was Amel, A Grey Warden is Born. Okay, so next up we're talking about the theme. And don't you know it, he forgot to send us a theme this week because he was too busy with stuff. But I looked through my old themes to see what we could replace it with, and wow, well this Quackcast is number 700, so we haven't done anything special for it, but we did do something special for Quackcast number 500, and that was this excellent theme where we all shout 500 in it, and it's just awesome. So it's an awesome rocky anthem for the DD Quackcast, and it's all hard guitars and loud stonking sound with the super duper added contribution of us all shouting 500. So Gummels and everybody who contributed to this, take it away and sing your celebration of us reaching a milestone in the Quackcast, even though it's not this milestone. theme by Gumbos. Hope you enjoyed that. Alright, so now we're talking about the Mythcast Part 2. Mythcast.
Missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity. Exactly.
What a mistake.
What a mistake. Bane's in the mist. Mist.
Gorillas in the mist.
So yeah, myths.
Yeah, we
and
talked about the
legends.
Minotaur a little bit on the Patreon video cast. That was an early one that I read. Was the story just the labyrinth and the Minotaur? Very sort of memorable. Definitely stayed with me all this time, and sort of the idea of having a mission and having to being sort of trapped somewhere, and then having a monster or a threat there is kind of. Yeah.
I'm
Crete.
assuming. Yeah, definitely, and that's a very typical truth to history sort of myth, in the sense that it reflects a lot the struggle of power between Crete and Athens towards the end of the Minoan reign of the seas. Yeah, and there are a lot of things that experts have matched that do reflect historical situations, not the myth as being a historical correct thing, but the fact that Athens used to be subordinate to Crete at some point, and their efforts to break that kind of subjugation.
Control, yeah.
Yeah. So that is pretty interesting. But I was going to go towards the a raunchier route, because I'm assuming if you read it as a young kid, how the Minotaur came to be was not included in the story, right?
I don't remember. It would have been. I'm pretty sure it would have been a collection of stories of monsters.
Yeah,
So,
because
I don't know how childish it would have been. This is back in the day, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have gone into detail on that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't have even told the story, because even if in its most sanitized version, it is not suitable for work.
Yeah.
And so the Minotaur's mom, the Minotaur is technically a prince, because the Minotaur's mom is the queen of Crete, Pasiphae.
Oh dear me.
Yeah. And what
I remember
happened?
this story. I do remember it.
Oh,
Go on.
please go ahead.
No. I remember it, but only vaguely, because you would have learned about this in more detail.
Yeah. That was a fun time when teachers have to tell you what happened, and they have to tell this to a classroom of young teenage kids, 12, 13 years old. So you can imagine how well that lesson went. So Pasiphae bragged that she was better than Aphrodite, which we all know is not the smartest thing to do.
Bad idea.
Yeah, and Aphrodite takes offense to these things. So she sent her son Eros, if you remember him from part 1,
Yeah.
to make her fall in love with the sacred bull.
Wow.
Yes. So she does fall in love madly with the sacred bull, and she wants the sacred bull. Let me put it that way. She really wants, she's thirsty for the bull. And of course the bull is not interested. because she's a human.
Right.
So what she does is she goes to Daedalus, who was like the commissioned engineer at the time in Crete, and she says, "You know what? I want you to make me a cow costume, like a fully functional cow costume that I can get inside and entice my beloved bull with." And Daedalus had learned by then to just ask no questions.
Yeah.
And he does make her a cow costume. And the rest is history. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
So yeah. Yes.
Did
That
they?
is
Was
how-
she ever released from this spell, or is that kind of the end of her story?
We actually, that's a good question. I don't think anyone is interested.
Yeah.
We just have to
I
have
watched-
after with her bull.
I think that eventually, like these things don't last for very long. They last enough for the gods to have their fun or to have their revenge. So I think that eventually she, sorry, I think that eventually she was cured of it. So, but she did have this Minotaur, and because the Minotaur was a monster, but at the same time, it came from the sacred bull, so it would be an offense to kill the monster. Myth logic, I don't know.
Sure.
So they had Daedalus build this labyrinth underneath the palace of Knossos.
Damn, Daedalus gets in everywhere.
Yeah. So to keep the monster in. And this happened after they realized that he liked to eat humans. So to keep that bit under control, they, basically stuck him in the basement. And he was a prince that lived in his mom's basement, basically. Oh.
And yeah, the labyrinth meant he couldn't find his way out. So
Exactly.
he's trapped in there.
Yeah. And Minos, I think it was Minos. Anyway, the king of Crete decided that this was an excellent way to make Athens pay for an accident that happened that caused the death of his actual human son. And they were supposed to send 7 boys and 7 girls before marriage age, like the age of his son at his death, to be eaten by the Minotaur for 7 years. So, and basically that's what happened until Theseus came along, and he said, "You know what? Why are we standing for this? I volunteer as tribute." And he went with the other 6 boys with the intent to kill the Minotaur and end this. So yeah.
And the coolest version of the Minotaur has to be the one in the Time Bandits, the Terry Gilliam film, I think.
Oh,
it was.
yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Well, they mess up. They don't have the proper mythology story. I think they have Sean Connery playing either Agamemnon. I think it's Agamemnon.
Agamemnon.
Or
That was way
Odysseus.
before Agamemnon's time.
Yeah, but they've because I mean it's not based on like the proper myth. They're just like pulling. It's the rule of cool, and he's
Robin
fighting.
Hood is in the movie. Yeah, everybody.
Yeah, he's fighting this Minotaur in the middle of a desert, so no labyrinth in sight.
Right.
But it is so cool. It's just worth seeing for the coolness and the bloodiness and the ferociousness of the battle. Even though
I'd like to see it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, check out the Time Bandits. It's a really groovy film. It's an awesome film. Mm-hmm. And not talking about the Apple TV the new TV series. I'm talking about the original 1981 movie. Okay, yeah. So, the sacred bull, is that anything to do with Poseidon? Because I think his symbol was a bull.
Yeah, it does. The sacred bull was always a symbol of Poseidon, but also of Zeus,
Oh,
depending.
really?
Yeah.
Because those two were meant to be brothers, but also Poseidon is the chief god, but Zeus is the chief god.
they did draw straws on who would be, the chief god, and Poseidon always had a grudge that he was unlucky, and he didn't pull the proper straw for being, king. But yeah, I mean, a bull was either of the two. Now, I think that this particular bull had a specific heritage. Like, I don't know. I think it was sort of born out of a god, but I don't remember that part. And so it was very, very specific, this particular sacred bull. But yeah.
Well, of
I
course.
don't remember that, and I'm too lazy to Google it.
Speaking of Poseidon, one of my favorite myths is Odysseus, or Ulysses in the Roman version. But yeah, I love Odysseus, and I loved reading that. And there's so many different stories that make up that whole journey. That's
Yeah.
Amazing journey.
And yeah, Odysseus is like the smart guy in Greek mythology, like the smartest. And literally, the adjective that goes before his name was inventive, and polymechanos is the Greek word, and that means not just that he comes up with a lot of ideas, is that he can think up a lot of tricks. He is a tricky person, sort of, but
and a strategist and all that kind of stuff. Because he was, I think, in the Iliad, the Trojan Wars, he was one of the generals or something, wasn't he? He was like,
yeah. I mean, he was one of the leaders, for sure.
King,
and yeah, and he was the reason that Achilles joined the Trojan campaign. Because Thetis, who was a goddess of the sea, and the mom of Achilles, knew that she could see the future enough to know that if her son went to Troy, he would die there. So she hid him in some king's palace. Again, I forget who was the king, because we never hear about him or his daughters again. So he hid Achilles among the daughters, dressing him as a girl. And because Achilles was so handsome and young, dressed as a girl, he looked like a girl. And Achilles had no problem with this, because he had like 12 girls to play with, quote unquote, to the point that when Odysseus found him and fetched him, and I'll say exactly how he did that, when he left, at least one of the girls was pregnant. So, like, he had his fun, let's put it that way. So the way that Odysseus lured out Achilles, because Achilles was a mama's boy, and he wanted to obey his mom and not go to Troy, was by, like, he was sitting around, near the girls, but not too close, because of course, men weren't supposed to approach the girls, and that's why Thetis hid her son there. And then he suddenly tossed weapons on the ground and said, "Fight!" That sort of thing. And Achilles had a reflex reaction, and he roared in a very teenage horse kid voice, like, fight, and he rushed out to fight Odysseus, and he of course shouted himself. And Odysseus said, come with us, meet glory. Nobody will forget your name, and he basically made the kid starry-eyed, and he convinced Achilles to join. That's how it happened. Otherwise, there would be no Achilles in Troy.
Yes, the genius of Odysseus. Well, and the other kind of story that people forget about Achilles is he was armored head to toe when he fought in war, and no one ever depicts him being armored head to toe, or if they do, they sort of give him like a bit of a kludge of Corinthian, helmet and greaves and all that kind of stuff. But the armor back then, in that time, was something that they've actually recreated just recently. They did an experiment with using actual modern Greek soldiers wearing this stuff and showing that it could be worn in war. And this was like head to toe plate armor made of bronze, and it's this very elaborate stuff. And that's what Achilles would probably have, if he was a real person, but and not a character of myth, we don't know. But when people were like talking about him, they would have been thinking of him in terms of wearing this stuff, which was literally head to toe armor.
He would have worn, and imagine like in an era where you wouldn't easily see sparkly things. He would have worn plated armor from top to bottom, and the armor at the time had this sort of metal collar that rose almost up to half, like hiding half the face almost. So it was like the lower. Yeah, and that would be gold plated. It would be bronze underneath, and all the the strengthening, fortifying layers. But it would also be gold plated. So when the sun, shone on this armor, it would reflect light. So imagine this thing, this tower of metal, basically, coming at you with all the noise of the metal and all the glow.
Clanking away.
Yeah, and the glow of the gold. That would be really scary. And also, it is the reason why Hector could not tell that it was Patroclus and not Achilles. Because the idea was that it was so shiny and his face was hidden that there would be basically no way to recognize who is under the armor. And the way they could tell who was by the armor, because it was specific to the high prominent, let's say, the high profile warriors, like the kings and the second in command, all of that. And also the insignia on the shield.
Yeah.
So, excuse the dogs just a second, and yeah.
Well, and the other thing is too, even if the armor is not plated in gold, polished bronze is basically like gold anyway, so it's going to be incredibly high status and beautiful looking and shiny and gorgeous. So this would have been amazing. And the other part of the story is that armor, and we know this because we have these examples of the armor. The least armored part are around the ankles, and that ties in with the myth. That's where he gets wounded. He's Achilles' heel. Which is the famous that what would you call it, Baines? Achilles' heel.
What did I call it?
I know. What do you call that kind of phrase? Achilles' heel. It's an idiom or something.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Famous idiom. That's all right. I see your communist cat T-shirt. Matching mine.
Yeah. It's the exact match to yours. This one.
Damn it! I'm not wearing mine at the right time. Damn it.
It's all right. We should coordinate like comrades at this point.
Exactly. All right. So Achilles' heel. That's where it comes from. So it actually has a basis in reality.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
We all know the fatal flaw is the term that means that, right?
Exactly. It's the exhaust port in the Death Star.
Exactly. So when you're learning all this stuff in school, Tans, is it? I don't know if this question makes any sense, but are you learning it as history or as literature or as
As myth,
entertainment? As myth?
in the sense that we have to, like, this is heritage. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So how shall I put it? It is a very Greek thing, I guess, because we are supposed to know the Greek mythology.
Yeah.
In the same manner that we are supposed to know the ancient Greek history that went with it, and yeah, so we are taught this thing, like we are taught in chapters, and we start with the creation according. Sorry, I don't know what got over me.
Okay.
So we start with the creation of the world, and then the titanomachia, and how Zeus came into power, and the Olympians, and then we go chapter by chapter. Each god is a chapter, so 12 chapters of gods and their shenanigans, and then we go to the demi-gods, so the heroes and all of that, and then we go to the mortals, and then that completes the course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a source to read this stuff in English that's not too academic?
You know what? There is an excellent book written by a Greek, one of the best Greek journalists in all of history, basically, of Greek history. I want to see if it is translated in English, because if it is, it would be the best way, because he writes in a very humorous way. So it's very vibrant, very alive, and you laugh your, like, I basically laughed from page 1 to page like 600, whatever it is.
Wow.
And he is very, very thorough, a lot more than school was, and has like all of these side myths and stuff, and a lot of allusions to what social issues were being touched upon. But he talks about it like everything is a joke. And I think that is a genius way to keep you invested without, sounding like a dusty old book. So let me see.
Right.
In English, one of the famous ones is Robert Graves, but I don't really think he's much good. I don't really like it because he puts his own slant too much on it. Like he's saying, but this is what this myth really means, and this is what this myth really means, and it seems to me that he's interpreting it way too much rather than just presenting it as it is, which I don't think you should do with this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I would love I mean, I know these are like, it's an oral tradition, like you said, so these stories were evolving. So maybe it's a tough order, but just the stories, the basics, the stories, but in a somewhat entertaining way. It would be great to know this stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, I think there is like a translation. In any case, the author is Nikos Tsiforos, and it is just called, the book is just called Greek Mythology. So let me find it. Let's see. Yeah. So I I'll just link you to the cover of the book,
Great.
and hopefully you can find that in English. If you ever find anything by this author, buy it because he is hilarious. In a very black, it is black humor.
Yeah.
So
hopefully the humor translates. If
it
there
is
are
not for kids.
Right.
Yeah, I really hope so.
My favorite
So
version
yeah,
of
I'm posting this just so you see.
okay. My favorite version of the Odyssey was a translation by Alexander Pope, and he did that in 1600s or late 16, early 1700s. I'm not sure. And that's a really cool read. It's hard to get through initially because it's all done in a kind of a rhyming poetry sort of way, like real kind of doggerel. But you get used to that very quickly, and it becomes, you don't even realize that you're reading terrible rhymes. You don't even know, and it becomes a very dramatic story, and you're just reading it going, oh wow, this terrible bloodshed and awful violence and all this kind of stuff, and it just becomes part of the story. It's like you don't even recognize that it's being delivered to you in that way. But that is a really, really good translation, and it's enjoyable. So I recommend the Alexander Pope version of the Odyssey in English. But yes, Odysseus is one of my favorite characters because he's celebrated for his intelligence rather than his strength or his killing capacity or anything like that. He's a MacGyver sort of a fellow.
Yeah, that's true. Although he can be drunk on his own mental superiority. Like he likes to brag is what I want to say. And that's what gets him into trouble. He absolutely had to let Cyclops know who it was that blinded him. Like, he couldn't keep his mouth shut. So, yeah. Because up to then, Poseidon was not really involved. So.
Yes, by hurting, what was his name? Polyphemus or something?
Exactly, yeah. Well done.
Yeah, I just remember that. Yeah, so by killing Polyphemus or hurting him, I don't know, he didn't kill him, he just blinded him, didn't he?
He blinded him, yeah.
Yeah. By doing that, he incurs the wrath of Poseidon, which is almost his doom. But the great thing is that all these other like Greek heroes and stuff like that, they sort of have trouble with gods, but they always come off second best. Odysseus, with the help of Athena, was able to not only anger Poseidon, but calm off. He went back to his normal life in the end.
Yeah.
Which how many other mortal heroes can you say did that?
Yeah. The thing is, and that might, put a little bit of a dent in his glory, is that Poseidon had directly told him that I can't straight up kill you because your fate doesn't let me do that. But I can sure as hell make it as easy as possible for you to find your death accidentally.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah, for sure. But the
him
thing is
versus
that,
a god, everyone else versus a god loses. But him versus a god,
the one
if they're immortal.
Yeah. The one
like
that
demigods
really
maybe
took on a god, the one that besides Odysseus, the one that actually fought a god and won was Diomedes, who took on Ares, the god of war, the god of freaking war.
Well, Ares is a freaking dumbass. But
yeah, he's a brick. Like he's the dumbest, the dullest tool in the toolbox. That's Ares. And there is a reason why Ares is so aggressive and idiotic at the same time, because he represents the bad side of war, whereas Athena is the glorious side of war. The strategy, the glory, the mercy in fighting, all of that is Athena. Ares is the bloodlust, the aggression, the distraction, the mindless distraction. Therefore, he's an idiot. So Diomedes had been taken care of, while in fights with the Trojans, to not confront gods, because he knew that if that happened, even if he won, they would curse the barracks or curse the army, and generally it would not come out in favor for anyone. But Athena, at some point, that has had the biggest beef with Ares since forever, told him, you know what, go for it. I'll protect you, and there will be no consequences. Just go at the, SOB. Mm. And Diomedes said, yay, okay, sure. And he did. And he actually managed to hurt Ares, who, said, ow, and flew off to Aphrodite to be coddled. So, yeah.
Oh, dear. Well, yes. So the stories of mortals facing gods, and very rarely come out on top. But yeah, so there's two that did, Diomedes and Odysseus, with good results. Mm-hmm. So, Baines, have you thought of any more that?
Oh boy, I think my limited knowledge. I think we've tapped my limit. I'm very interested in all of it.
Did you have something about Apollo that you really liked?
Maybe, but it's not. It's blocked from my brain at the moment for some reason. He kind of the god of technology in a way.
Apollo wasn't really.
No.
Apollo was the pretty boy. The pretty boy, basically.
Oh, okay.
However,
I'm not wondering anything specific about Apollo.
I like Apollo because he's the name of the moon missions, isn't he, or something like that?
Right. Yeah,
I honestly don't like him. I think he's an entitled little female dog. So, because he is vindictive, and he doesn't, and very rapey, by the way, but he doesn't take no for an answer. Most of his partners, quote unquote, did not or were questionable in their consent. Let's put it that way. But there was one myth where I sided with him, and that was in the myth of Asclepius, which is one of my favorite myths. And so Asclepius, before he became the god of medicine, was the son of Apollo with, I don't remember, he was the son of a mortal woman, but I don't remember who. And he became this amazing doctor. He had this talent for being a great doctor. He researched, he had the gift, he could tell what was wrong with you, and generally he was pretty much if you were in his hands, you would be well. To the point that he found a way to bring people back from the dead. So cure them of death, basically, if they were freshly dead. Let's put it that way. So if someone was just dead, he could find a way to bring them back. Like he could heal them. It was a medical thing. Let's say that. So after he did that, like three times or something, Hades went to Zeus and said, "Listen, I get it that he's a prodigy, but can you tell him something because he is messing up my business, basically." And he is curing people that are supposed to die when they are dying. And Zeus, being the bleep that he is, instead of actually, telling Asclepius to knock it off, he took a lightning and he just, tossed a lightning at him and killed him. So Asclepius was dead. And Apollo was so mad that this happened that he literally went to the Cyclopses, I don't know the plural, that make the lightnings for Zeus, and he killed them.
Oh.
In a rage. And of course Zeus brought them back, but he was and he was so angry that he was about to go to war with Apollo. And Poseidon said, "You know what? I support Apollo, so we're going to mutiny." All of that. It almost caused a war against Zeus, this thing. But I think Athena intervened, and Hera and the goddesses said, "Don't be idiots. You did the stupid thing. You did the stupid thing. Let's correct and move on." So what happened was that they brought Asclepius back to life and made him a god to appease Apollo. And so he became the god of medicine. And he continued, curing people, but he didn't do the death thing anymore, unless it was something super special. And that's how Apollo and Poseidon received also punishment for, murdering Zeus's helpers. And they were sent to Troy for penance as mortals for 10 years, I think. And they built the wall of Troy, which was impenetrable, and Troy could not be conquered.
Yes.
So Troy became cocky, and then we have, Paris being super cocky, stealing Helen, and everyone trusting that the walls would protect them because they were made by gods, which they did, but Odysseus found a way to get past the wall.
This clever horse.
Yeah.
But Asclepius and Apollo, all that kind of stuff. I think there's a relationship with the modern symbol of the staff with the snake and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Wasn't that that's from there?
Yes.
And that's still used as a symbol for medicine.
Yeah, and he still is a symbol for doctors. At least over here, you see his face right next to the goddess of health, who is Ea. Her name is Ea. So we still have them around. And I forgot to say that the daughter of Asclepius is Ea, who is literally, her name means health. So there you have it.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm. She also was a doctor, by the way.
I love this these things where you can say, "Oh yes, this is a myth," but we still have remnants of this in our culture. It continues on, and of course, the Apollo moon landing, and after Apollo, of course, and all those Apollo missions. Apollo 11, Apollo 13, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. Why were they named after Apollo?
I have no idea.
But that reminds me of, because a rocket is a big phallic shape, and of course we have the horrible god Priapus, who was a big phallic shape.
He was like a symbol of fertility and all of that. He wasn't supposed to be. He was a novelty god. Let's put it that way.
Could he be a remnant of an older kind of god system?
He seems to be a version of the god Pan, who was like this half goat, half man god that was very much in the forests and all of that, and Pan in earlier versions of the whole mythology was a very powerful god that then was syncretized with other gods and goddesses, and he became this spirit of nature, basically. Whereas other iterations became something else. And there is this theory that Priapus is like an offshoot of the god Pan in certain ways. So.
Yeah, I love that relationship. But yeah, he was like maybe perhaps he had that kind of older god role of being a god of fertility, but he became a god of comedy, basically.
Yeah.
I mean,
in the ancient Greek world, it no longer was a big penis a sign of fertility anymore. That was a sign of being brutish and comical, and that having that kind of focus was not to do with fertility and sex anymore. It was more to do with being brutish and uncivilized.
Yeah, it was like Greeks were never were above dick jokes, and potty humor. So definitely.
And he was a dick joke because, say, all Greek statues depicting whatever, and not just statues, but frescoes and mosaics and all the imagery depicting Greek gods and goddesses, genitals are not a very big part of that. They are rather minimized.
Yeah.
And especially on females. But Priapus is the opposite.
Mm-hmm. And he's definitely also considered ugly because the ancient Greeks thought that the smaller the set of jewels, family jewels that they had, like the smaller the size, the more civilized and the more handsome you were. So it would not be, let me put it, like if you were to measure and antagonize each other with measuring, body parts, the specific body part, the guy with the smallest one would win. So it was... Yeah.
Yeah, weirdly. And it's probably because their focus on, civilization and thought and all that kind of stuff, rather than a focus on, fertility and all that kind of stuff. Is although, Greeks were very happy with their depictions of pornography on pottery and things like that. There was no shortage of that.
Well, it was pretty much like pornography is today, in the sense that it wasn't supposed to be like on the shelf in the family common room. It was something that was for private use. This pottery was
the naughty pottery.
Yeah, almost like contraband. Like it was kept away from public view. Let's say like that. So.
Yes, so they were just as prurient or prudish as we are today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. More, maybe even more so. They just didn't, they manifested it in different ways, usually by segregation more than anything else. And also, the big elephant in the room about the small sizes is that they did have this thing about, uh, being too intimate with teenagers. Let's put it that way.
Oh
So,
my goodness me. We won't go into that, but yes.
yeah. And no matter what anyone says, that was a thing. It was just supposed to be a very short-lived situation for both the older man and the younger man, because if it went like beyond maturation of the younger man, then that was considered uh, despicable and disgusting. So don't ask me about the logic over this, but it was supposed to be like you bring the young man into the world and then you leave him alone, sort of thing. I'm so sorry about all these mental images. So, yeah.
Yes, well, we get back into mythology again. So we've
Going
got
back
another
to
10 minutes. Oh, go on.
okay. No. Oh, what did you want to say?
No, I was just saying we've got 10 minutes.
Okay.
11.
You have, yeah, go ahead.
No, you
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to just ask if you had anything about Thanos or Morpheus or Hypnos who feature in our little
Well,
story.
not very. I mean, they are not very. They are actually very quiet gods in the sense that they don't get into scandals that make myths happen. In the sense that Morpheus, for example, Morpheus has another two brothers. Like they are three brothers that are in charge of dreams, and Morpheus is the one that makes the shapes of the dream. So everything that is alive is the result of Morpheus. But there are two other gods that are so obscure I have to always look them up.
Oh.
And one makes the setting, so sets up the stage for the dream. So all inanimate objects. And I think the other one does something else. Like it's like they have the dream webcomic team in the sense that one does the story, another one does the background.
Yeah, that's cool.
So they are three gods, but they don't really mess with you. And Hypnos again just brings sleep, and Thanatos is the one that has myths about him, and the most prominent one is.
I might have said Thanos by mistake. Sorry about that. Yeah, Thanatos.
Well, that's where the Marvel, they got that from.
So yeah, Thanatos is the actual god of death. Hades is the god of the underworld, but he's not the god of death.
Yeah.
Thanatos is the god of death. He is the one that brings death to you, rips you, if you like. So the most prominent myth about him is when Sisyphus tricked him into trapping him into a box. And the reason for that was that Sisyphus died, so Thanatos went to get him. And while he was dying, Sisyphus told his wife, "Do not bury me. Like, do anything you want, but don't bury me. Don't give me any, funerary rites, nothing. And wait for me. I'll be back." So, Thanatos takes him back down to Hades, and then Sisyphus starts complaining to Hades that my wife has neglected me. I have no peace because no funerary rites, nothing, all of that. So please let me go back to chastise her and force her to give me all the rights, and then I'll be back. So Hades believed him and said, "Okay, I'll give you three days to be alive again, and then you come back down." So he returned in his body and did not go back. So they sent Thanatos to rip him again with a pair of magical shackles. So Sisyphus said, "Oh my God, those shackles are awesome. How do they work?" And he tricked Thanatos into basically wearing the shackles, and then he tossed him into a box. But with Thanatos trapped in there, death couldn't happen. So you had basically zombies. Imagine people that were ill but would not die. So that you had, dead people, basically dead people walking around, and in battles, people would be wounded, mortally wounded, and would not die. All of that, a horrible mess. So I don't remember. I think like a couple of gods went and freed Thanatos, who then refused to go near Sisyphus again. So they had to wait for Sisyphus to die of old age and basically drop down into the underworld, where Hades was beyond mad and tossed him into Tartarus, which is basically ancient Greek hell. And he's the guy that is kept busy, quote unquote, because he pushes this boulder up a hill, and when he gets it on top, it rolls back down, and he has to push it back up again.
So there's him. He's famously So Sisyphus does the Sisyphean task, which is famously a task that is never ending because it always has to be done, and it's just pointless. But there's the other one. Damn it.
Oh yeah, the hunger guy. Oh my God, what happened?
Hunger. And then there's the thirsty man.
Yeah, thirst and hunger. 1 second, I'll ask Mom real quick.
Tantalus. So Tantalus is the one that's thirsty all the time, I think.
Yes,
because the water never, for some reason, he can never slake his thirst.
Yeah, he's submerged in a lake, but the moment he tries to drink from the lake, the waters go further, just enough out of reach that he can't drink. And same goes for fruit that is hanging over him, from a tree. But when he tries to reach for them, they rise up and he can't reach them. So he's surrounded by food and drink, but he cannot drink or eat. And that is a punishment.
We get the word tantalizing from.
Exactly. And he got this punishment because, real quick, he killed his son and served his son to the gods as a bet that they would not be able to tell that the meat was human. So
yes,
they could tell that the meat was human, and they were not happy because to kill your children is a capital cardinal sin, just as for the children to kill their parents. So, and also he tried to cheat the gods. So,
which they would hate even more.
Yeah. The only one that didn't immediately understand it was Demeter, who nibbled a little bit from the meat. So she ate just a little bit. And the reasons that she couldn't immediately understand that this was human meat was because Persephone was missing at the time, and she was preoccupied with finding her daughter. So she wasn't paying attention to what she was eating, and that's why she just nibbled a little bit from the meat. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
We should give a quick mention to Artemis, who figures a lot so much into pop culture. The kind of inspiration from that action lady with with the bow and arrow. You see it a lot in Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And stuff.
And one of the
related to Wonder Woman, of course.
Yeah.
Through the Roman version, which was Diana.
Yeah. And she is one of the 3 virgin goddesses. The other 2 are Athena and Thetis. No other goddess is a virgin. And
Athena,
she is also
Athena, and who was the other one?
Thetis, um, no, maybe I'm wrong. She's the oh my goodness, my brain just froze. But I think she's Thetis. Yeah, the goddess of the hearth. The goddess of the hearth is the one that also is a virgin. Yeah, like the fire that never is put out in the middle of the house. You know.
Yeah. There's a Norse god of that too, Frigg or Freya or something. Interesting. Yes, Diana. Oh god, the thing's gonna end. But the Roman version was some people say she was like a version of Athena too, which is interesting. So not only just like another virgin goddess, but like a different version of her.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting way of looking at it. But there's the Roman version, of course, Diana, but then Mithras, I think, is the name of the warrior goddess kind of version.
The other thing with Artemis, I don't know, I don't think Diana had that, but maybe I'm wrong, is that she is also a goddess of the plague, and she kills only females. So.
A traitor to the sisterhood.
Yeah.
All right. We're about to end, and thank you very much for listening to the Mythcast.
Thank you.
Loved it. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Quackcast 700. Oh, my God. Bye.